Well, hello and welcome to the Fully Alive podcast. My name is Megan Brusicki, and this is my husband, Michael Brusicki.
I am your husband.
Hello.
And I am so glad we get to do this podcast together.
Yeah, it's fun.
And this is our, second, third time
Episode
of recording
3.
some podcast.
Yep.
Episode 3 that we're launching into. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fun because I feel like you're not sure what I'm going to say still, but you're a champ.
That is true. I never know what you're going to say.
So I love that.
That's part of the fun, right?
Yes. I love that you are just here for it. So thank you. So we're going to talk about the holidays today, right?
Right.
We're all gearing up or in this holiday moment we're in. It's a huge thing in America.
Yeah.
Holiday season.
Holidays.
A
lot of holidays.
We put some Christmas trees up earlier than we ever have this year.
Yeah, that's true. We've never been Christmas trees up on November 2nd, but this year we did. And we've always been a one tree for the most part.
Yeah.
We've had two a couple of times, but for the most part, it's been one tree. And this year, somehow we have
the kids' rooms.
The kids wanted 4-foot trees. So a couple of the kids have trees, and we put a tree up in this like weird window.
Yeah.
And then moved a tree. So we now have like 4 or 5 trees.
There's a lot of trees.
And they're all like prominently in windows for all of our neighbors to see
great.
that we still had pumpkins on the porch and Christmas trees in the window.
Bring it to a holiday throw up. It's great.
Yeah.
Well,
a lot of holidays.
Let's start with a little fun.
Yeah.
Because we learned that there's some pretty incredible holidays that maybe you want to be ready for. So we're going to lean in because sometimes we are in the midst of an important holiday and we don't even know that it's an important holiday.
Right.
So we're in this, fall, winter season here for the holidays, but to maybe get us a little bit ready for 2025,
right.
January 21st is Squirrel Appreciation Day.
It's an important day. So
what is your plan for Squirrel Appreciation Day? I'm curious. Are you going to give me a squirrel?
I'm formulating a plan currently.
Are you going to what kind of squirrel is your favorite kind of squirrel?
The one that isn't on my house.
The one that's not on your house. So some ways
Not
for you to
on my
celebrate
roof.
Squirrel Day. For those of you, if you're thinking about it, you can leave food out for squirrels. So these are animals. They're God's creation. You can leave food out for them. There's also some incredible documentaries you can watch on the squirrel. They have a variety of different color of
maybe the flying
fur
squirrel.
And
they have
hair.
their own day.
And so I just would encourage you if you want to get into that, you could do that. Also, what's one of your favorite holidays coming up in 2025 that maybe some of our listeners today do not know about or they're not ready for?
I didn't know about May 9th, Lost Sock Memorial Day.
That's an incredible day.
That seems like an important day. In our family, there are 7 people.
Yes.
So 14 feet.
Yes.
And a lot of socks.
So one of the ways...
So many socks.
I learned one of the ways to celebrate this Lost Sock Memorial Day is to just use your socks for cleaning cloths. Maybe you just...
Bonfire.
Burn them. If we did that, we would never have socks and our sock budget would go up. So it's an interesting day. I don't know.
I like the timing of it, May 9th. It's right before summer because summer's my favorite time when kids don't need to wear socks.
That is.
We don't have to deal with socks in the summer.
That is true. And I want to just get this plug in, this last one, if there's a date that we don't know about, July 27th. So this comes right on the heels of Purpose Conference at our church. And this is where you take your pants for a walk. So July 27th, 2025, take your pants for a walk. Anywhere you're
I have nothing to say about that.
Anywhere you want to. I mean, you could
get outside and go for a walk.
Yeah, take your pants for a walk anywhere you go. So,
there's also March 26th, Make Up Your Own Holiday Day, which feels like what all of these are.
All of this list.
Are just make up your own holiday.
Well, we want to talk a little bit, personal and also a little bit serious today. We come into this holiday season, and as we walk through it, I think that holidays are definitely one of those things that certainly we hope would bring high levels of joy. Mm-hmm. We know the truth is families, individuals often experience frustrations. Mm-hmm. There's grief maybe from people that are here or not here. And there's stress.
Yeah.
certainly when you begin to compare yourself to other people and what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And so we thought we would just start with some of our favorite things and just kind of weave a conversation today that we hope will be encouraging for you as you walk through the holiday season, maybe to discover some things for your family or yourself individually, and just help you a little bit. So let's.
Yeah, I think it's interesting though. Even, I know we joked about some of those holidays, but there's holidays all throughout the year. But for some reason, these November, December holidays feel very significant to a lot of people. There's a lot of tradition tied to those holidays for a lot of people, and that can bring a lot. I think that's part of the intensity of that we feel around these November, December holidays,
So I'm going to go super spiritual for a moment right now because I read something and it's on my mind. And that's part of this podcast where we don't know what's really going to happen, which is really a lot of fun. But I was reading about how the difference between Christmas and Easter, and about how, and remember, if you're watching this today, we are Christians. We love Jesus. We are pastors. How Christmas has been fully commercialized in the United States of America, and I'm sure in other nations that are fully commercialized, where you don't even necessarily think about that this came from anything to do with Jesus or the birth of Jesus. It's just at this national,
it's a culturally celebrated holiday.
So much so, Easter, though the Easter Bunny tried to take over, it never really caught the level of legs that Christmas did, because you cannot fully commercialize the resurrection of Jesus. Isn't that so incredible?
That is incredible.
So I just thought about that, and we're months away from talking about Easter. I'm excited about the resurrection because I think about it on Christmas, that Christmas matters because Jesus rose. But again, I'm getting a little preachy.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, I am getting a little preachy.
No. I didn't mean it like that. But I think, talking about some of the holiday traditions, when you think about going into this season, a lot of us are thinking about what we're going to do. We're thinking about who we're going to spend time with. We're looking at our calendars. We're trying to navigate family and friends and activities we want to do with our kids or with our friends or whatever. There's a lot that we kind of can try to pack in these next couple months. And I think even in marriage, when we got married, we've been married 20 years. We came from two different families with two different sets of traditions.
Very good. We came from two different families, because if we had gotten married and we were from the same family, I don't want to insult anybody's states now, but
different podcast. Separate traditions, and we had to find a way to work together to come up with what it was going to look like for us and how to honor our families, but also create our family. And so that navigation of your traditions, my traditions, wasn't always easy in the beginning.
Right.
What was the biggest one?
Biggest tradition?
I mean, besides just like, are we going to go to my parents or your parents or whatever? Like that in the beginning of marriage is always hard, of like who you're going to spend holidays with. But outside of that, like a tradition.
I think so. Some of my favorite traditions in this season that I would say are for us. I cook a turkey on Thanksgiving as long as we're at our home, and it's fun for me to cook a turkey because I take things that I learned. My parents divorced when I was 2 years old, and I take things that I learned from both sets of my parents in how you make a turkey, of how I make a turkey with butter,
you just mix it all together,
and with a cup of wine that's in there, which ruins the coffee cup every year with the has the wine because it bakes for hours in there, and it creates this turkey. And so I've had a lot of fun getting up early in the morning, making the turkey. Used to watch the Thanksgiving Day parade. To be honest, I feel like that's become inappropriate for my kids at times. So I don't love that tradition as much as I used to love it. But those are big Thanksgiving ones for me that I think. And also just, we want to have as many people to our home. If we're at our home for Thanksgiving, we want to have as many people as we can. What for Thanksgiving? What's something for you?
I mean, I love having lots of people. I love the preparation. I'd say one of the challenges that we navigated when we first got married with how we were going to celebrate Thanksgiving was the real dishes versus paper dishes.
This was huge.
That was actually really big. I grew up where, my mom placed a high value on the tablecloths and using china. She has a lot of china that's been handed down through her family. And so she always would set these beautiful places, polishing the silverware. My Thanksgiving days were not
awful.
filled. They were not. They were absolutely not. But you wanted to sit and watch the parade, and I wanted
And
to
then
make
football.
a pretty table.
Yeah.
And I was like, we need real dishes. And you're like, it's fine with paper. I'm like, absolutely not.
I
It was hard.
remember maybe the first time, I don't know if we were married yet or dating, when I was at with your family, your parents, who I love your parents, which I'm grateful for, to have in-laws I love, and we get along. I remember when it was like, we need to polish the dishes and clean all the china. And I'm like, this is work. Like, why would we do this on a holiday?
Ironing tablecloths and hand washing everything. But I have a lot of good memories of like doing that with my sisters.
Right.
So I think you create memories while you do those things. You
Right.
know? But I do remember a Thanksgiving at our home when I sent you out to buy more real dishes the night before, because we were having more people than we expected and we didn't have enough real dishes.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, we will buy more.
Yeah.
But
we typically use
paper now.
plates.
There's just a reality that I want to spend more time with people than.
But we do the chinette.
I still set a pretty table. Yeah,
Christmas.
but I think that that's just real. It's just simple things that you don't even realize mattered to you until you get into it.
Yeah.
Like, oh wait, that was important to me.
Christmas. What's some? Let's talk a couple Christmas traditions.
Traditions that we had growing up, or traditions that we have together.
I don't know.
Okay.
We want. It's our podcast. We can do whatever we want.
The next battle we had to fight was the Christmas tree.
This is true.
The real tree versus fake tree. When does the tree go up?
Yes.
You know what I'm noticing about this is you keep winning.
I was hoping that you wouldn't recognize that in this moment, because as we talked about Thanksgiving and then went to Christmas, I was like, I'm sorry. I mean, my personality, I know, is more overbearing probably than yours, potentially. So, yes, you grew up in a real tree. I grew up in a fake tree family. Yeah. And we did the real tree, which I will say, I love going and cutting down a Christmas tree. I think it's a fun family experience. But just the work then of like the pine needles fall off and it's a mess and it can't be up for 2 months because it typically dies.
That is how we have pushed to fake trees, is because you kept pushing earlier and earlier and earlier. My family didn't set up our Christmas tree until December. Usually my birthday is in December, so it was typically around my birthday.
What an important holiday we haven't even started to talk about yet.
We typically would go and get our Christmas tree around my birthday. I think my parents were trying to be really intentional to not overshadow my birthday, so I think that's part of that reason. But I have really good, significant memories from going to get a Christmas tree. Yeah, I grew up in the Midwest. It was often snowy.
Yeah.
And that going to the tree farm and picking out the tree and fighting with my sisters over which one, and my dad cutting it down and us dragging it home. Like, it was much more about that than it was about having a real tree. So like going to buy a real tree in a parking lot so that I have to take care of the needles and forget to water it is really not what I'm after.
Yeah.
So
I think one of the best Christmas traditions, so when I look back over the last 20 years and think about just different things that have happened, obviously being parents, which those watching today, maybe you're single, maybe you're, engaged, newly married, maybe you're grandparents, have kids, anywhere in between there. Obviously those different things, different seasons of life make you do different things. Yeah. I think that since we've been in ministry, so for the past 15 plus years, the one thing that has the one thing that has been 100% constant is Christmas Eve. We're at church, and
if you ask our kids, they'll tell you that's their favorite Christmas tradition.
Like, we are at church on Christmas Eve.
They always surprise me.
So it's just powerful. I think so for us as pastors, our kids are typically involved. It's usually a long day. Yeah. So we're usually physically tired, but just the emotional experience, the spiritual experience, the relational experience with people, that is without a doubt my favorite Christmas tradition that we do. And then I just really love what you started doing with the kids. I think it's great to share, because I think other families might like it for Christmas morning when you started doing the scavenger hunt.
Oh, yeah. They do. That's probably their second favorite scavenger hunt for the Christmas gift.
So you send them on a scavenger hunt. Yeah. I didn't know if you wanted to take 30 seconds and tell people what that is.
I create a scavenger hunt around our home with the kids' gifts. So we typically do, a handful of gifts. It's not an overwhelming amount. So
Yeah.
it doesn't take all day. But it starts usually with something under the tree, something significant, and then it has a clue. And then from that clue, they have to figure out what room in the house or what place to go to. And then they find their next gift. So each of them has a specific wrapping paper. So once they figure out their
Right.
wrapping paper, then they can go and find their gift. And then there's a clue. So then they all come back to the living room. They open that gift. We talk about what they got before they open the clue to go find the next one. So I really like it. Slows things down. It's more, it's more time and fun. And we've done riddles before where they have to figure
Yep.
out, what it is. And that's just a fun tradition that I think we all enjoy.
You said something earlier that maybe you could take a couple minutes and just share on. You said when you were talking about China,
Mhm.
not the country, but the place, that it's about the people, So we're going to do things and we're going to have traditions, but we want to make sure that those things don't somehow get above the people.
Yeah.
How do you do that, or
Well,
how
I
would you
think it's a
encourage us?
challenge because there's something special about setting a table for people, making it beautiful. That is a gift to people. And I think, that gift of creating a tablescape, creating a beautiful place for people to gather, there is a piece of that. So I'm not suggesting we just throw that out, right?
Well, correct.
At
And
all.
I didn't mean like just specific to like setting the table for Thanksgiving or something. I just meant more when we think about these, this whole season of 6
Mhm.
weeks, right?
Yeah.
It's all over the place. It's like you got to get these presents, you got to
Mhm.
do this, you
Yeah.
got to do that, and we begin to run, and it can become about the things.
Mhm.
One of
Yes,
the things
right.
you do
I
a good
think
job of is get in our family, and for me is like, man, it's about Jesus, it's about the people. So I
Mhm.
didn't know if there's a couple things that you could encourage us with to
Um,
get about the people.
Yeah, I think, anytime we're thinking about a holiday tradition or we're thinking about a thing, we need to constantly remind ourselves why we're doing it. Like
Yeah.
a lot of us, we had traditions growing up and we kept doing them because it's what our parents
Cut the
did.
ham off.
It's what do you need to explain that, or does everyone know what that means?
I don't know. It's the part where like some
You
gra-
go,
a kid's a mom wife is cutting off the ham to go in the oven on a holiday, and she calls her mom and says, "Why do we cut the ham off before we put it in the oven?"
and she doesn't
And her
know
mom says,
'cause
"I don't know.
yeah.
Let me call my mom." And so she calls her mom and says, "Because my pan wasn't big enough to fit the ham." So you've got 2 generations passed down cutting the end off the ham that you didn't need to
You don't even
do.
know why. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think that the why is really important. Why are we doing what we're doing? And keeping that at the forefront of everything and being okay with letting go of some traditions that don't serve you anymore.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that, it doesn't mean anything. It's just being intentional. We want to
Right.
be intentional. Maybe there's things that we've done that we liked, but it doesn't fit in this season and it makes us busy and rushed. So it just doesn't fit. And that's okay. Because the point is, the point of the Christmas season is Jesus and focusing on,
Yeah.
his coming and all of that. And so the peripheral things should serve that, not
That's
us
exactly right.
serving all these things and tasks. One of the traditions that we have in our family that we kind of switched up a few years ago was my parents always gave my sisters and I Christmas pajamas on Christmas Eve. It was a special thing.
Yeah.
We would go to Christmas Eve service, we would come home and we would get Christmas pajamas to go to sleep in. And we've kind of continued that tradition. But for us, our life was just a little bit different. Christmas Eve, like you said, we're tired. We're
Right.
not doing much on Christmas Eve. But a few years ago, we changed that and started doing Christmas pajamas on the first Sunday of Lent. The first
That's
Sunday.
hilarious.
That would be interesting.
So
The first Sunday of Advent.
So let's just jump right there for a moment then, because I know you're talking about Christmas pajamas, but because I realized let's talk about Advent
Okay.
right here. So if you want to unpack anything else about Christmas decorations?
No, I was
sorry everybody. We're just
The
having
little
real
scattered.
life
No,
conversation.
but I think that I was just saying that we adapted something to make it fit better, and it helps highlight something that we want to focus on with our kids. Advent being something that we want to highlight with our family, that we want to kind of slow down
Right.
each weekend and focus.
So Advent, I did not grow up with Advent. So many of you are listening to this, watching this today, unless you grew up in a traditional church setting, Catholic, Lutheran, Presbyterian, Anglican. There are a lot of
Yeah.
high churches that have had the practice of Advent. I didn't grow up with that experience in the churches I went to. If you have no church background, you didn't grow up with Advent. So we have been on a learning journey the last several years of these 4 Sundays leading into Christmas. Advent's actually the start of the Christian calendar, the Christian New Year. The first Advent is the 4 Sundays before Christmas. And the purpose of this season for, almost 2,000 years was for us to have an expectancy for God. Yeah. So it gets Christians ready for the second coming of Jesus, while we also are thinking about the first coming of Jesus, which is what Christmas is, the birth of Jesus. But it helps us evaluate our life. And so we have started on the Sundays of Advent, every Sunday night of Advent, we will light a candle, Advent candle, and we have some scripture and a prayer that we do as a family, which, by the way, our youngest is 8 now. Just so that we're all...
It's less holy than you think.
Yeah, just so we're all clear. There's not something where like the pastors and their kids all just have this spiritual encounter. There's yelling, there's fighting. Sometimes I read the verse with a lot of anger and frustration and try to get calm. But it's a practice that's forming us. Yeah. And I think it's one of the things I'm most excited about, to what we were saying earlier about the people and about the why. Yeah. Because it helps bring the noise of the culture. It just helps get that out of the way and zero us on in. But like you said, we also want to be like, well, how do we make this fun? Yeah. Let's give the kids a gift on the first Sunday of Advent.
Yeah, we want them to be excited about Advent and focused on it.
So I think that's how you can learn in your family how to do both things that can make it.
Yeah. Advent, I think, is interesting. I did grow up with Advent, but not necessarily truly understanding what I was doing.
Exactly.
Right? Until I was older, and then we were in church traditions that didn't really focus on Advent, and then rediscovering it and kind of remembering the impact and the significance of that formation as a child, even though I didn't know it then.
Yeah.
And I hope that for my kids, even though they don't know it now, that it will be. But I actually think Advent is something important to lean into this season, leading into Christmas, leaning into this anticipation, this expectation.
Right.
I don't think it's a coincidence that our culture has created the busiest time of year, that there is just so much distraction and chaos. And
so true.
From a time where we really should be expectant, waiting, looking forward. And, I think the enemy of our souls would like us to rush through that.
We'll make sure it's in the notes for this episode, but there's a book I'm reading on Advent right now that I'll recommend for our whole church coming up in this season, and we'll make sure it's linked in here. That really helps with that. And it's not a daily devotional. It's more just like, what do we want to happen in us in this holiday season? And this is December. Obviously, there's Thanksgiving in this process also, which brings us to so much gratitude. Let me just get us a couple last little things to wrestle with here over these last few minutes. What's one thing? Maybe not just have to be the most important thing, but what do you think is one thing that we could share that helps us not get overwhelmed in the holiday season? Or maybe we could ask it this way as well. What do we do when we feel overwhelmed in the holiday season? Either way, what's something that has helped you that might help people? Or if you don't know, ask me and then I'll answer that.
Okay. Well, a couple of things. I think staying consistent in prayer helps us not only receive the peace of God, but it also helps us to know what we're supposed to do.
That's so good.
I think one of the hardest parts and one of the reasons that this season is so busy is because we feel like we have so much expectation on us.
Right.
There's just a lot of demands, a lot of parties, a lot of this, a lot of that. That's an expectation that is put upon us. And we have to be able to come to God and discern, what do I need to be a part of? And what am I doing just because I feel like I have to? Or, how do I find the most important parts of this season and lean into those, you know, not just the constant demand on our time. I think that helps us from being overwhelmed. And then I think being okay that, I don't know, it's easier for me. Maybe it's just my personality, but like, I'm okay to not do everything.
Right. Right. I think it's important to not compare.
Yeah.
I think one of the most challenging things. So I can remember being a teenager. So I'm a parent of 3 teenagers right now, and then 2 younger boys who I feel like they think they're teenagers because they have older siblings who are teenagers. And I think that temptation to compare what somebody else does or gets in the holiday season it is so deeply rooted in us at a young age. And I think as we become adults, I don't think it just leaves us, and we can begin to see what somebody else does around the holidays, and we can start to feel like we lack.
Right.
Or, I mean, to this level, then we see somebody else who does it with simplicity, and we're like, I just do so much. I wish. So whatever your holiday is going to look like, know that we can learn from people good things.
Yeah.
But when we're just comparing ourselves to what other people are doing, it is literally going to suck every ounce of joy out of our life, and we will feel like just a mountain of weight and pressure placed on us. The other thing I would say, and agreeing with what you said, even from prayer, I think it's important. This season, we do a lot of things on the outside. We're talking about traditions that are fun. Nothing that no present that we unwrap, nothing that we do is going to actually cause us to have the lasting change or feeling inside that we ultimately desire. And so I just want to encourage everybody to get the most out of this holiday season by making it about what happens inside.
Yeah.
Maybe in 2024, as the year ends and, we get to that December 31st day, we could look back over the last couple of months in the holiday season and go, man, God, like I can feel that I was changed inside in this holiday season. And it's not about what I did or didn't do or anything like that.
Yeah. And I would just say one last encouragement to those who maybe are going into this holiday season sad. I think that that's a real reality of sometimes those traditions that are so special to us, when they end, when people have left, when we don't live near family, whatever that might be, there can be grief that comes with that, and I've navigated some of that living far away from my family. We don't often see my family on Thanksgiving or Christmas, and that has been really challenging for me to navigate. And so I think some people, when you find yourself in that place, you can feel grief, and I think it's important to not just push through those feelings and just try to experience the joy, because that's what you're supposed to do, but to really recognize that. And then ask God to show you the joy right in front of you, and lean into the community that He has put around you.
That's good.
So sometimes on Thanksgiving, we aren't with my family, but we invite a whole bunch of people over to our home that don't have family near either. And we end up with a house full of people that we get to enjoy and be with. And so I think that one of the ways to fight back against those sad feelings, is to create new positive experiences where you're at.
That's really good. And I think that we've learned that this is part of why being planted in a local church matters so much, because you have biological family. Is that the right way to say that? So for us, our extended family, but we've never lived in the same town as Megan's parents.
Never lived in the same state.
Yes, I've never lived in Nebraska. And we've not lived at different times where my parents lived. We didn't live near my dad. Anyway, so we love our parents. We love our family. But God he will bring family to you as well. And I think that doesn't mean you, just to add on to what you said, that doesn't mean you forget. You don't just ignore, and that's still there. But just trusting that God can cause you to have those feelings, I think is really so good. And I guess last thought, because you said that, it made me think of this. Part of what I want us to do, my own life, and for Megan and our kids and our church, one of the ways we fight back consumerism and the culture we live in is we refuse to believe that the cultural Christmas idea is what will actually bring us joy. And that reality of why, and we talked about earlier, I mean, we have some trees up early, but why is Christmas decor up so early? Because it is true. There's a dopamine high that happens in people, and they want to get that dopamine high as fast as they can, because people were so stressed out and overwhelmed with life in general. And that's why, I mean, some of the amount of Christmas decor across the board, I'm sure it just keeps getting more and more and more and more and more and more and more. But it's what God does inside. And so this holiday season, enjoy the season, but let God do something in you and your friends and your family that would make it the best season possible.
Absolutely.
So thanks for listening. We do hope you have an incredible holiday season.